everybody, it's Dana Joy, and I'm so happy today to be announcing the release of a partnership stamp set between myself, Hero Arts, and Pocono Pam. Today is the wonderful release of the United as One stamp set. This stamp set has so much meaning to me, and I'm so forever blessed that Hero Arts is giving us the opportunity to produce this stamp set. This stamp set is one that I feel we need so desperately right now, and it's about inclusion. And these hands right here represent all of the hands that need support and love and strength right now. So I want to share this stamp set with you and a couple of cards. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to talk about the meaning of this stamp set. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to start with a very clean, simple design for this stamp. And I want you to know that the reason this stamp set came to life was through many conversations, very quick conversations with Aaron from Hero Arts, as well as Jennifer McGuire and Pocono Pam. And we decided that making this stamp set was just needed because of what's going on in our environment today. So coming together and having this partnership really means a lot to Pam and I. We have been in this industry now for probably over 20 years, and this is just a heartfelt thing that Aaron and Jennifer and the team at Hero Arts made possible. It is showing unity within this craft community, unity within our world, and it's something that we so desperately need. So for my image today, I'm starting off with the heart, and I love the feel of this stamp set because it's very artistic, very sketchy, and it plays very nicely with so many things that we feel we need to be supported on. So I stamped out my heart in the Hero Arts strawberry ink, and I'm going to stamp that twice because I want to have some really bold red on this card. Within this stamp set, we have multiple sentiments that say that we are united in peace and we stand with each other. And we need to have an open mind and an open heart to love one another equally. So next I'm going to grab in the hands. These hands represent people who are standing with each other, that we're never divided in our feelings and in our ways and how we present ourselves. I am a very strong advocate of making sure that diversity equals inclusion. Everyone should feel that they are supported and loved by their friends and their allies. All right, so with the hands, I'm going to go ahead and lift that with my MISTI and go ahead and grab myself some intense black ink from Hero Arts and stamp this out. Now, what's so awesome about this stamp set is you have layering hands, which I'll show you a little bit later in the video. And then you also have these outline hands, which affords you the opportunity to color these hands any way you wish. That is what's so great about having the two different sets of hands. You can either use your Hero Arts inks with these, or you can use your Copic markers, your color pencils, watercolors, whatever medium you like to color with. I'm going to stamp that a second time because I really want to have an intense outline on this image. Also within the stamp set, you're going to have some sentiments that show that you are loved, supported, necessary, and appreciated. These words speak volumes to anyone and everyone. And also the one that says, I stand with you. These sentiments could be used for so many occasions. If you ever felt like you were alone in this world, or if you ever thought that you were seen as different, this is a stamp set you can use. If you're down and out about something and you just want to show somebody that they have your back or you have their back, this is a stamp set you can use. It's also a stamp set that shows that we are all in this together and we can make a difference when we take off the blinders and we see each other for what we are. Human beings who want to be included. All right, Once I've had this stamped out, I want to make sure that I have my sentiment lined up correctly. So I'm going to grab my piece of acetate and stamp on that first before I actually stamp on my image, just to make sure I have everything lined up in the place I want it to be. And now I can ink that sentiment back up and go ahead and place it down on the image. Now this sentiment is one long sentiment. I chose to do a little stamp surgery, cut mine in half so I can use it separately. Of course, when you have it, you can use it as one long title, or you can be brave like me and cut your stamps in half. All right, let's get to some coloring. I always like to color with a backer piece of paper behind my image I'm coloring, just so I can soak up any extra alcohol ink. I'm using E00, E11, and E13 to start coloring in my first hand. When I color with Copic markers, I always like to put down a base layer of color. This to me just helps my blending and gives me a smoother finish. I did speed this up just a little bit because I'm just doing simple Copic coloring. Again, you can use color pencils with this stamp set. You can use inks. You can use watercolors. This image is such a powerful image, and it will look gorgeous repeatedly stamped on the back of a card, on an envelope, even actually as artwork on a shirt. All right, so I went in with that E11, and now I'm coming in with that E13, and I'm just adding in my shading. Now this stamp set is currently available over on the Hero Arts website for you to pick up. And may I suggest that you also pick one up for a friend, maybe someone who is not familiar with artwork that looks like this, or artwork that represents such a strong message. But I encourage us to spread this message of diversity, spread this message of inclusion, and spread the message of unity. That's what we so need right now. We need unity. All right, I'm coming in with E35, and this is going to be my base color on this second hand. And the colors I'm using for this is E35, E23, and E27. Again, I'm doing simple Copic coloring, nothing fancy. I just like to make sure I have a little bit of layers of colors, so I have some shadows. But if you're not comfortable with coloring like this, a nice wash of color would totally look beautiful on this image as well. I lightly come back in, finish off some of the flicks that I need to smooth out some of this coloring. And then this image is almost going to be done. As you can see, it's something quickly that you can color and get mass-produced cards with. Keep that in mind too. We're in a time right now that, sending out cards is something that we also need. And it also shows that we stand by each other. For the nails on this, I use R22 and R27. The fingers are really small, but, I think that they're my hands sometimes. So I need to have some nail polish on there. All right, after I have the coloring done, again, I'm going to keep this first card really clean and simple. So I'm just going to finish up those nails, and now we can go ahead and start making our card. How gorgeous is that image? I absolutely love it. Now I did want to add a bit of shading around the hands. So I came in with my T1 marker and my T0 marker just to add some shading, so it literally looks like the hands are being lifted off of the page instead of just being flat. And you can do this with many images that you color. If you have a very simplistic image, make sure to add this last little bit of detail. I promise you it will make a difference in your coloring. It just gives a nice little outline to what you're working on, and it gives the image a little bit more depth. Now you can also achieve this look by lightly going around your image with a pencil, a gray shade pencil will look just as beautiful. All right, now since we finished up that, we can go ahead and start making our card. I'm using a white card base for today, so I'm just going to use a EK2 scoreboard, and I'm going to make this an A2 card, which is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. I'll go ahead and crease that down the center, and then I can fold it over and use my Teflon bone folder to make sure I get a good crease on my card. I think this image in its simplicity can totally just be stamped on a card itself without having to layer it. Next, I'm going to come in with some pitch black cardstock from Hero Arts, and I'm going to place this down on my white card base. Now, I did trim this down just a little bit so I can have a nice white border around the outside edge of my card. I do this a lot in my card making because I just like to see that white frame around my colored cardstock. I went ahead and used my ATG gun to go ahead and glue that down. And now look how striking this white piece looks. But I wanted to bring in a little bit of red. So I had some red scraps from a project I worked on a couple of weeks ago. And I thought they would give a nice little contrast to this and really pull in that red from the heart. So I'm going to go ahead and place down this panel first before I actually put on those strips of red paper. Now again, if you want to mimic this card or case this card, you can totally make your heart in a different color besides red, and you can match your cardstock as well. Now, if you don't have matching cardstock, just use your ink cube. Your ink cube can color white cardstock to match. So I went ahead and I glued down those tiny strips, and I'm using some Hero Arts glue here, and it's like a little glue pen, and I'm just making sure that I get that glue everywhere. Now on the top of the card you can see that it's still a little bit wet, but I'm not worried about that because this glue dries back matte, and once it dries back I have the opportunity to just use my little sand eraser and get off any extra glue marks. I went ahead and I trimmed down the sides on a tad bit of a slant. So just so it gives the wings of the red pieces a little bit of flair. Now I want to come in with a multi-line pen, and I'm just going to add some faux stitching. These little tips and tricks of adding just one more detail really makes a card stand out. Now this image, as you can see, was so easy to color, so you can totally mass produce these cards. And these are the kind of cards I love to make because they're easy and simple to do. Once I have my faux stitching down, I am a girl who loves herself a little bit of bling bling on her cards. So I'm just going to pair up some red sequins in different sizes onto this card. Now, if you were making this as a masculine card, you can forgo the sequins if you want, and you can possibly just use enamel dots, or you don't even have to use anything. You can just leave it plain like this and it will absolutely be gorgeous. I'm using the same glue to attach my gems into place. And then once this is done, this first card's going to be complete. I wanted to show you a nice simple way to start off with this stamp set that you can really get into your craft space and start producing cards. All right, this card looks gorgeous, and I'm going to go ahead and set this card aside so we can start working on our next card. Absolutely love this card. All right, I already have some paper in my MISTI, and I'm showing you how to use the layered hands. Now again, this is a very sketchy hand print or hand design, so you don't have to be 100% perfect with this, and that's what I love about it. So I placed my hand exactly where I wanted, and I started with one hand down first. I'm going to grab myself some inks and stamp out my first layer. Now on each hand, there's two layers. There's going to be your base layer and then what I call your detail layer. So I have found with working with this stamp set, it's easier to stamp my base layers first. And I do that a lot with any of my layering stamp sets. I'll clean off the center of that. I'm going to tap on some more ink just to make sure I have everything covered, and then stamp down my first layer. Now you'll see when I lift this up, there's a little space, a little white section right there. That is to help you line up your next hand. So keep that in mind when you see this stamp set. I'm going to finish off my first hand, and excuse my head. You're going to see all the grays right now. I just want to make sure I'm really on top of this stamp set. I can place down that next layer. And for this layer, I'm going to go in with a darker color. And this is because I want to see that shadow. I want to see that detail of this hand. So I'll line that up and go ahead and press that down. And my first hand is complete. All right, now I can take that other hand, that interlocking hand, and slide it right between the one I already have down. Watch what I mean. So I'll line this up, and there's grooves within the stamp set that you'll be able to see right where the fingers are. You can lock those pieces together. I'll lift that up with my MISTI, and now I'm going to come in with a light shade of brown. These hands remind me of me and Pocono Pam. So I'll press that down, and you'll see that our hands start to come to life. Once I have that first layer down, again, we have a base layer, I'm going to go in with the second part. And that is going to be my detail layer. I'm going to use a darker ink for the detail layer, the same way I did it on my first hand. I'll go ahead and line that up, grab myself a tad bit of a darker shade brown. And you really want to have contrast when you're doing this too. You really want to have contrast. So I'll press that down. And then once I lift up, you will see my interlocking hands. I mean, how gorgeous is that? All right, I am going to keep this card very simple as well. But first, I want to stamp my sentiment. I'm doing the same trick of putting the acetate sheet where I want it first to make sure everything's going to line up before I stamp it onto my paper. I'm going to clean off my stamp and place down this time the acetate sheet first. I'll place that down first. I'll go ahead and line up my sentiment of where I want it to be placed. Close my MISTI lid. And now I know that that sentiment's going to be lined up perfectly. I'll go back in with that ink. And I'm going to stamp this twice. I want this sentiment to be a little bit darker than the outline that I placed on the hand. So double stamping this is just going to give me a richer shade of that brown. Now to finish off the card, we do have some hearts. We have 3 hearts in this stamp set. And I thought it would be very beautiful to stamp out those hearts in the colors that I use with this hand. So I'm just going to repeatedly stamp out hearts embracing these hands. Again, this is a very easy card that you can totally mass produce and start sending out to your friends. So I'm just going to go through all of the colors and stamp them on, and look how gorgeous this is. Now you can do this with the small heart if you wanted to, and we also have an outline, 2 outline hearts that I think would be beautiful used as a background filler as well. I'll just place the last couple of hearts on this card, and the back panel of this card will be complete. All right, I am using a white card base again, and I did find some paper to match with the ink I was using. I did not trim this down as small as my first panel because I really want to see those hearts. So I'll use my ATG gun one more time, and I will place this down onto the rust color paper. I think pulling in this rust color works beautifully with the rust color hearts I have. So I'll quickly just line that up. And if you wanted to add in, like I said, some of the smaller hearts or the sketchy outlines, that will look gorgeous on this as well. All right, this card is almost done, but again, another example of how you can embrace this stamp set and again, quickly make cards. I'll go ahead and line that up on my white card base, and we're going to be finished with the cards for today's video. I want to thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today, and I'm going to bring in the first card that we did as a quick reminder of what we accomplished earlier today. All right, everybody, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I will see you in another video soon. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.